You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Leadership in the context of agility is not about commanding from above or dictating every move, but about creating the conditions where teams can thrive. Enabling leadership focuses on clarity, safety, capability, and alignment, the four pillars that allow agile teams to reliably deliver outcomes. This orientation recognizes that complex work cannot be controlled through detailed instructions alone. Instead, it flourishes when people closest to the problem have the autonomy and trust to act responsibly. Leaders set direction and intent, but they also protect the environment that nurtures creativity and problem-solving. By emphasizing conditions over commands, enabling leadership ensures that energy is directed toward outcomes rather than wasted in navigating fear, confusion, or bottlenecks. This mindset reshapes leadership from authority to stewardship, placing value on cultivating teams that can adapt, learn, and deliver sustainably in uncertain and fast-changing environments. The purpose of leadership in agility is to steward both outcomes and culture. Leaders in adaptive organizations remove obstacles, clarify intent, and safeguard the team's ability to focus, rather than trying to control every task or decision. This shift is subtle but profound. Instead of asking, "How can I ensure every detail is executed as I envision?" enabling leaders ask, "What barriers can I clear so the team can make the best decisions possible?" By aligning high-level objectives with cultural values, leadership ensures that teams understand not only what they are delivering, but also why it matters. This prevents misalignment when trade-offs arise and enables decisions that are consistent with broader goals. Ultimately, leadership in agility is less about directing and more about amplifying the capability of others. When leaders focus on stewardship rather than control, they create cultures where innovation and responsibility flourish naturally. A servant leadership stance is a hallmark of agile environments. This approach emphasizes enabling others by providing context, resources, and protection of time and focus. Instead of micromanaging tasks, servant leaders ensure that teams have what they need to excel independently. For example, a servant leader might secure access to testing environments or shield the team from conflicting demands, allowing them to stay focused on delivery. This form of leadership requires humility, as it shifts the leader's role from being the central decision-maker to being a facilitator of conditions. Servant leadership does not mean passive leadership. It is active, but the activity is in service of others. Effectiveness. When practiced well, it creates trust, because teams know their leader is working to remove barriers rather than add them. This trust fosters ownership, creativity, and accountability, as people feel supported rather than constrained. Psychological safety is a leadership obligation, not a luxury. Teams must feel confident that candor, dissent, and error reporting will be met with curiosity rather than punishment. Leaders play a central role in setting this tone. When leaders openly admit their own mistakes, invite dissenting views, and respond constructively to reported problems, they model the behaviors that foster safety. Without this foundation, teams tend to hide risks, avoid speaking up, and repeat errors that could have been prevented. With psychological safety, learning accelerates because failures are surfaced quickly, assumptions are tested honestly, and diverse perspectives enrich problem-solving. For instance, if a team member feels safe raising a concern about a design flaw, the team can address it early rather than suffering downstream consequences. Psychological safety, nurtured by leadership, transforms fear into confidence, enabling teams to operate at their highest potential while continuously improving. Vision and purpose communication is another essential leadership function. In agile contexts, detailed plans often evolve, but a durable North Star must remain visible. Leaders articulate a clear vision and connect daily work to overarching purpose, providing guidance when information is incomplete or pressures mount. This clarity helps teams make trade-offs without waiting for constant approval, because they understand the destination. For example, when deadlines loom, a team anchored by purpose can prioritize the features that best serve long-term goals, rather than succumbing to short-term pressures. Purpose-driven communication also motivates, as individuals find meaning in work that contributes to something larger. Without vision, teams risk fragmentation, chasing local optimizations rather than coherent outcomes. Leadership that consistently reinforces vision and purpose equips teams to navigate uncertainty with confidence, ensuring alignment across diverse roles and situations while preserving energy for what truly matters. Empowerment with clear decision rights balances autonomy and accountability. Leaders grant latitude by defining boundaries within which teams can act freely, while maintaining transparency about expectations and follow-through. This clarity prevents both micromanagement and abdication. For example, a product team may be empowered to prioritize features within a release, while budget allocations remain a leadership decision. By explicitly defining who decides what, confusion and overlap are reduced. Empowerment strengthens ownership as teams understand that their choices matter and will be respected. However, empowerment must be paired with accountability. Teams are trusted to act within their domain, but outcomes and standards remain visible. This balance ensures that autonomy drives responsibility rather than chaos. When done well, empowerment not only increases speed and responsiveness, but also builds confidence and engagement, as people feel both trusted and supported in their decisions. Motivation rooted in autonomy, mastery, and purpose sustains energy far better than extrinsic carrots or sticks. Leaders who cultivate these conditions unlock intrinsic drive, which endures even in challenging circumstances. Autonomy gives individuals control over how they approach their work, signaling trust in their judgment. Mastery provides opportunities to grow and refine skills, reinforcing the satisfaction of progress. Purpose connects effort to meaningful outcomes, reminding people why their work matters. For example, developers motivated by mastery and purpose are more likely to innovate and persist through obstacles than those working only for bonuses. Extrinsic rewards can still play a role, but without intrinsic motivators, they quickly lose effectiveness. Leadership that designs conditions for autonomy, mastery, and purpose creates resilience, as individuals draw motivation from within rather than depending on temporary incentives. This approach makes creativity and sustained commitment far more likely. Coaching, mentoring, and teaching are distinct leadership practices that must be applied deliberately. Coaching helps individuals reflect and build judgment by asking probing questions rather than giving direct answers. Mentoring provides guidance by sharing personal experiences, offering a model to follow. Teaching involves transferring explicit skills or knowledge through structured instruction. Each approach is valuable but suited to different situations. For example, a leader might coach a team member struggling with prioritization by asking reflective questions, mentor another through sharing how they navigated a similar challenge, and teach a third the mechanics of a new tool. Effective leaders discern which stance is appropriate, adjusting to the learner's needs and the context. This deliberate variety accelerates growth, equipping individuals with both confidence and competence. Leaders who master these distinctions expand their impact, turning everyday interactions into opportunities for development and empowerment. Facilitation competence allows leaders to create productive conversations, especially when stakes and emotions run high. Agile environments thrive on collaboration, but collaboration can easily collapse into conflict or drift without structure. Skilled facilitators know how to design discussions with clear objectives, guide participation, and manage dynamics so all voices are heard. For example, in a tense retrospective after a failed release, a leader who facilitates effectively ensures that frustration is expressed constructively and that insights are distilled into actionable improvements. Facilitation is not about dominating conversation but about shaping conditions for dialogue to succeed. It requires listening, neutrality, and the ability to reframe issues without bias. Leaders who invest in facilitation skills strengthen team cohesion and decision-making, reducing the likelihood of stalemate or fragmentation. In this way, facilitation becomes a critical tool for maintaining momentum and clarity during complex, emotionally charged interactions. Ethical leadership, establishes the guardrails within which agility operates. Leaders set standards of fairness, privacy, and safety that cannot be sacrificed in the pursuit of speed. Ethical obligations remind teams that integrity and trust are long-term assets that outweigh short-term gains. For example, leaders must ensure that shortcuts in data handling do not compromise user privacy, even if doing so might accelerate release. Ethical leadership demonstrates that speed and integrity are not opposing goals, but partners in sustainable success. It reinforces psychological safety, as teams know that their well-being and principles are valued. By modeling ethical decision-making, leaders build credibility both internally and externally. Over time, this integrity strengthens resilience, as organizations that prioritize fairness and safety weather crises with their reputations intact. Ethical leadership is thus not a constraint on agility but a foundation that ensures agility remains sustainable and humane. Stakeholder alignment and influencing without authority are essential leadership skills in agile contexts where formal hierarchies may not govern all interactions. Leaders connect teams to sponsors, customers, and partners, translating diverse needs into shared decisions. Influence is built through credibility, trust, and communication, rather than positional power. For instance, a leader may bring stakeholders together to prioritize features, facilitating trade-offs without having unilateral control. This approach reduces late resistance by making alignment visible and participatory. Influencing without authority also means respecting others' goals and constraints, finding common ground rather than imposing outcomes. Leaders who excel here build bridges that keep delivery aligned with organizational strategy and user needs. They ensure that agile teams are not isolated but are integrated into the broader system of value creation, making their work both relevant and sustainable. Delegation and accountability practices prevent bottlenecks by distributing ownership while keeping outcomes transparent. Leaders who hoard decisions slow progress and disempower teams, while leaders who delegate without accountability risk chaos. The balance lies in distributing responsibility with clear standards for visibility and follow-through. For example, a leader might delegate backlog prioritization but require transparent communication of trade-offs and progress. This ensures that decisions are made close to the work, while outcomes remain aligned with broader goals. Delegation also strengthens skill development, as individuals grow through taking ownership. Accountability, meanwhile, ensures that standards are maintained and that decisions contribute to collective outcomes. By modeling this balance, leaders prevent both over-centralization and abdication, building resilient systems where ownership is shared but direction is coherent. Feedback culture is most powerful when modeled by leaders themselves. Leaders who request critique, respond openly to observations, and make visible changes based on feedback demonstrate that learning is valued at every level. For example, a leader who invites a team to evaluate their facilitation style and then adjusts accordingly signals humility and adaptability. This openness cascades, encouraging others to seek and act on feedback as well. Feedback culture transforms critique from threat into growth, but it requires leaders to show vulnerability first. Without this example, teams may fear reprisal or see feedback as hollow. With it, they experience a culture where voices matter and improvements are continuous. Feedback-driven leadership accelerates trust and learning, making agility real not just in processes, but in relationships and behaviors. Recognition and celebration practices reinforce desired behaviors and values. When leaders acknowledge contributions that embody collaboration, resilience, or learning, they signal what matters most. Recognition must be authentic and connected to outcomes, not vanity metrics or superficial praise. For instance, celebrating a team for addressing technical debt that improves stability highlights the importance of long-term value. Recognition also energizes teams, making progress tangible and visible. Celebrations can be small and frequent, building momentum and morale, or larger and symbolic, marking milestones. The key is consistency and alignment with values. Recognition paired with learning creates a culture where people feel both appreciated and motivated to continue growing. Leaders who recognize effectively shape culture as much as they direct outcomes, embedding values into the fabric of daily work. Leadership anti-patterns are important to name and counteract. Command and control reflexes. Hero culture, opacity, and decision hoarding undermine agility by stifling trust and adaptability. Command and control reduces ownership, leading to disengagement. Hero culture creates fragile dependencies, as only a few are trusted to solve problems. Opacity erodes trust, leaving teams in the dark about rationale and priorities. Decision hoarding creates bottlenecks and slows responsiveness. By surfacing and naming these anti-patterns, teams and leaders can hold each other accountable for avoiding them. This honesty prevents harmful behaviors from becoming normalized. Instead of defaulting to unhealthy patterns under pressure, teams can rely on shared language to correct course. Addressing anti-patterns proactively strengthens leadership credibility and preserves the conditions necessary for agile success. It reminds everyone that leadership is not just about what to do, but about what to avoid when building resilient teams. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Trust building is the foundation of effective leadership, and transparency is its most powerful tool. Leaders who share rationale, risks, and uncertainties strengthen credibility, even when decisions are difficult. Transparency does not mean oversharing every detail, but it does mean treating colleagues as capable partners who deserve context. For example, explaining why a release date must shift, including the risks of moving forward prematurely, builds confidence that leaders are being forthright. Even when news is unwelcome, transparency reduces speculation and fear by filling the vacuum with clarity. Trust is not built in a single moment, but through repeated consistency, following through on commitments, aligning words with actions, and admitting mistakes openly. Over time, this honesty becomes a safety net that allows teams to stretch, innovate, and take calculated risks. With trust secured, leadership influence expands far beyond formal authority, creating alignment through respect. Decision-making under uncertainty is a defining leadership skill in agile environments. Perfect information is rarely available, so waiting for complete clarity often means missing opportunities. Leaders address this by framing problems, generating options, and applying time boxing to reach decisions responsibly. For instance, they may outline 2 or 3 viable paths, identify what evidence favors each, and commit to a choice within a defined timeframe. This prevents analysis paralysis while maintaining discipline. Leaders also model humility by acknowledging assumptions and planning to revisit them as more data emerges. By being explicit about uncertainty, they show that decisions are not guesses, but structured bets, informed by the best available knowledge. This candor builds trust and reduces fear of failure. Decision-making under uncertainty ensures progress continues, even in ambiguous conditions, and positions the team to adapt quickly as new information arrives. Capability building programs are critical for turning individuals into resilient, high-performing teams. Leaders sponsor initiatives such as cross-skilling, pairing, and deliberate practice to broaden expertise and deepen confidence. For example, a capability program might rotate developers through testing tasks or create dedicated time for on-call simulations. These experiences strengthen both technical skills and team cohesion, reducing bottlenecks and increasing adaptability. Leadership ensures that these programs are not treated as optional extras, but as strategic investments in long-term capacity. By building skills before crises occur, leaders reduce the risk of failure when new challenges emerge. Capability building also communicates respect, as leaders invest in the growth of their people rather than treating them as replaceable resources. Over time, these programs create teams that can handle shifting priorities and complex demands with resilience, independence, and confidence, embodying the spirit of agility. Cross-team coordination is another leadership responsibility that must be handled without smothering autonomy. Agile teams operate best when they are empowered, but interdependencies mean alignment is still necessary. Leaders foster coordination through shared outcomes, synchronized cadences, and early integration rather than bureaucratic control. For example, aligning system demos across multiple teams allows issues to surface before integration becomes costly. Shared objectives also prevent local optimizations that undermine broader goals. The key is creating lightweight structures that make collaboration natural without adding unnecessary process. Leaders act as connectors, ensuring teams are aware of each other's priorities and constraints, but stop short of dictating how each team works. This balance preserves autonomy while enabling system-level coherence. Cross-team coordination led in this way reduces friction, accelerates delivery, and ensures that collective results remain aligned with organizational strategy. Remote and hybrid leadership practices require particular attention in today's environment. Leaders must replace the serendipity of co-located offices with deliberate practices that keep distributed teams cohesive. Written context becomes essential, ensuring that decisions and rationales are visible to all, not just those in certain time zones or meetings. Inclusive rituals, such as rotating meeting times or asynchronous retrospectives, give equal voice to remote participants. Explicit agreements about communication channels, response expectations, and availability reduce misunderstandings. For example, a team might agree that urgent issues go through chat while broader discussions live in a shared document. Leaders model inclusivity by treating remote members as full participants, not second-class contributors. These practices require intentionality, but pay dividends in cohesion, equity, and trust. In hybrid contexts, effective leadership ensures that distance does not diminish connection or performance. Leadership metrics must reinforce the right behaviors. Counting hours worked or tasks completed distorts incentives and undermines agility. Instead, leaders track outcomes, flow stability, engagement, and escaped defects. Outcomes reveal whether the work is delivering real value, while flow stability shows how predictably teams are operating. Engagement reflects whether people feel motivated and supported, while escaped defects highlight quality issues missed by current practices. For example, a team that consistently meets commitments but delivers low-value features is not truly successful. By focusing on meaningful metrics, leaders encourage behaviors aligned with both short and long-term goals. These measures also make progress visible in ways that resonate with stakeholders, building trust in agile approaches. Leadership metrics are not about monitoring individuals, but about guiding the system, ensuring that performance is measured in terms of value and resilience rather than superficial activity. Risk and impediment removal is one of the clearest demonstrations of enabling leadership. Teams often encounter systemic barriers they cannot resolve on their own, such as policy conflicts, resource shortages, or external dependencies. Leaders step in to escalate issues, adjust organizational policies, or secure missing resources. For example, if a team cannot access a testing environment due to procurement delays, leadership takes ownership of resolving the blockage. By doing so, leaders signal that they are accountable for creating conditions in which teams can succeed. This role requires vigilance and responsiveness, ensuring that teams are not left to struggle alone. It also demonstrates humility, acknowledging that some obstacles are beyond the team's scope. Effective leaders treat impediment removal as a priority, knowing that every barrier lifted amplifies the team's ability to deliver value and innovate consistently. Continuous improvement sponsorship is how leaders ensure agility sustains itself. Teams may identify experiments or retrospective actions, but without time, resources, and visible support, these improvements often languish. Leaders protect time for retrospectives, allocate budget for small experiments, and insist on follow-through. For instance, if a team identifies automation as a way to reduce defects, leadership ensures that the work is prioritized alongside delivery. Sponsorship also includes modeling curiosity and openness, showing that leaders themselves are willing to learn and adapt. By treating continuous improvement as essential rather than optional, leaders keep teams evolving, This practice creates momentum, as small wins compound into significant cultural and technical progress. Sponsorship transforms continuous improvement from rhetoric into reality, ensuring that agile systems remain vibrant and resilient rather than stagnating under the weight of routine. Governance integration reconciles agility with organizational oversight. Traditional governance often relies on stage gates and documentation detached from actual delivery cadence. Leaders bridge this gap by aligning evidence, traceability, and compliance with agile rhythms. For example, instead of demanding a static requirements document, governance can be satisfied by traceable backlog items linked to acceptance criteria and tests. Leaders advocate for these adaptations, ensuring that governance receives the assurance it needs without disrupting flow. This integration prevents the stop-start cycles that occur when agile teams are forced to pause for approvals unrelated to their pace of delivery. Governance integration demonstrates that agility and accountability are compatible, not contradictory. Leaders who succeed here reduce friction, maintain compliance, and protect team momentum, ensuring that agility delivers both speed and responsibility. Leading change is one of the most demanding aspects of leadership. People naturally resist leaving behind familiar habits, even when new practices promise improvement. Leaders address this by managing narrative, participation, and pacing. A compelling narrative explains why change is needed and what it will achieve. Participation ensures that people feel involved, not imposed upon. Pacing prevents burnout by phasing changes so they are digestible rather than overwhelming. For example, rolling out a new workflow gradually, with feedback at each stage, allows people to adjust confidently. Leaders also recognize the emotional dimension of change, offering empathy and support during transitions. By guiding people through the psychological journey, not just the procedural shift, leaders make change sustainable. Effective leadership turns resistance into engagement, ensuring that transformations take root and deliver lasting value. Communication rhythms keep stakeholders aligned and prevent surprises. Predictable, audience-aware updates build confidence and enable timely support. Leaders establish cadences such as weekly progress updates, monthly steering reviews, or quarterly strategy sessions, tailored to the needs of different audiences. These rhythms ensure that stakeholders remain informed without being overwhelmed. For example, executives may need a high-level view of outcomes, while teams require detailed context about dependencies. Regular, transparent communication also reduces the risk of rumors or misalignment, since people know when and how they will receive updates. By maintaining these rhythms, leaders create a stable flow of information that supports decision-making and trust. Communication becomes less about reacting to crises and more about sustaining ongoing dialogue, embedding transparency into the fabric of agile operations. Conflict resolution frameworks equip leaders to transform disputes into constructive outcomes. In dynamic environments, disagreements are inevitable, but unmanaged conflict can erode trust and productivity. Leaders use structured dialogue to separate interests from positions, helping participants uncover the underlying needs driving their stances. For example, two teams may clash over priorities, but through facilitated discussion they may discover that both share a desire for reliability, enabling compromise on sequencing. Frameworks such as interest-based negotiation or structured retrospectives provide tools for these conversations. By resolving conflict respectfully and durably, leaders prevent recurring disputes and strengthen relationships. Conflict resolution is not about suppressing disagreement, but about harnessing it to create better solutions. Leaders who handle conflict with fairness and skill reinforce psychological safety and ensure that diverse perspectives enrich, rather than fracture, team dynamics. Crisis leadership tests the resilience of both individuals and organizations. In moments of disruption, leaders must stabilize first, then learn publicly. Stabilization means providing clarity about immediate actions, ensuring safety, and projecting calm confidence. For example, in a major outage, leaders coordinate response efforts, communicate transparently with stakeholders, and protect teams from blame while they focus on resolution. Once stability is restored, effective leaders guide a learning review, making insights and corrective actions visible to all. By modeling accountability and humility, they maintain trust even in adversity. Crisis leadership is not about appearing infallible, but about demonstrating steadiness and humanity under pressure. Teams that experience this kind of leadership emerge more resilient, knowing that their leaders will support them during crises and that mistakes will be treated as opportunities for systemic learning rather than scapegoating. Leadership sustainability ensures that leaders themselves remain effective over the long term. The demands of enabling others can erode judgment and integrity if leaders neglect their own boundaries. Sustainable leadership involves reflection, peer coaching, and conscious boundary setting. Reflection allows leaders to learn from their experiences rather than simply reacting. Peer coaching provides support and perspective, reducing isolation. Boundaries protect energy and prevent burnout, ensuring leaders remain present and thoughtful. For example, setting aside time for strategic thinking or personal renewal is not indulgence but necessity. Sustainable leaders model balance, showing their teams that resilience applies at every level. By investing in their own well-being, leaders preserve the clarity and integrity required to create enabling conditions for others. This sustainability ensures that leadership remains a source of strength, not a point of fragility. In agile systems, leadership domain synthesis emphasizes that agile leadership is about enabling conditions, ethical guardrails, and adaptive decision-making. Leaders create clarity, safety, capability, and alignment, ensuring that teams can deliver reliably without heavy-handed control. They steward culture by modeling feedback, recognition, and transparency, and they protect outcomes by removing impediments, integrating governance, and guiding change responsibly. In crises, they stabilize and learn. In uncertainty, they frame and decide. Across time, they sustain themselves to serve others. Leadership and agility is less about authority and more about stewardship, less about directing and more about enabling. By embracing this orientation, leaders transform organizations into systems where trust, adaptability, and responsibility thrive together, producing results that are both reliable and humane. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.